Yeah,
Do you know some
man.
basses want you to slap them? They're just like, slap me. And I'm
It's
like,
so true.
Yeah.
Don't make me slap the bass. Don't make
Yeah.
me do it.
This is one of
Yeah,
these basses.
man. Yeah.
Oh, I just love it. But before we go any further,
great.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
We need to do this, and this is shout out to you for sharing this with me earlier.
Shout out. Oh, yeah, man.
Just want to
Robert
kick
Palmer.
just kick this off with a freaking awesome song. Oh my word! Woo.
So the fight to make ends meet.
What?
I know.
Keeps a man up on his feet.
So good.
Holding down his job.
I mean, bass player just playing a lot in the verse.
Sure he can.
And it's so cool.
Who takes
And this groove here.
The freaking steel pan, dude. The steel pan. The world needs more steel pan. Can we just put it out there? If somebody important is listening to this that has influence, who can add this into the world, please, more steel pan.
I'm cool with that.
To make the world go round.
Just 1978, man.
Year of our birth, dude. Dude, Robert Palmer. Who
Yeah,
knew?
Robert Palmer.
And what's this guy? What's the bass player's name?
This guy, I believe the bass player on that live recording is Pierre Brock, just playing the funkiest, most pocketed P bass. Just so, man, I got to this tune. Shout out to Mick Sterling, who's a great singer, songwriter, entertainer, performer in Minneapolis. I played in a band of him with him, and he showed me this tune. He was like, "Oh, everybody knows Robert Palmer as Addicted to Love." Right, in the video, or like, if you know Robert Palmer, that's where you know him from. But he's like, man, he was funky and like R&B and soulful before the pop just took hold,
Yeah, and
he showed me this tune. It's the
you
best.
turned up today and you were like, dude, Robert Palmer. And I was like, Addicted to Love. And you were like, no, you got to check this out. So we were listening to this. We thought it'd be a wicked thing to sort of like kick off the podcast with it. But as we were watching it, I went on the Googles, on the interwebs. I was like, where is Robert Palmer from? And you were like, oh, you always thought he was from the States.
I was
from
like, oh, somewhere in the
Batley.
States.
Dude, Batley. Not just like anywhere. Batley, West Yorkshire. Shout out to anybody that's... Gav's over here. He's doing this because in his younger years, Gav over there, he used to, every Saturday night, he'd be going and lurking down in Batley Frontier. Anybody from Batley, West Yorkshire will know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh,
That's
legendary.
What, 3 people listening to the pod? 3 people maybe?
Dude, Batley Frontier used to be this place. And it was it not the like UK's biggest light show or something back in the early 70s or something like that? Anyway, Robert Palmer is from Batley and then moved to Scarborough later on with his parents. Who knew?
Well, I didn't know, and I don't even know what any of those places are. So Batley is, how close is it to Leeds?
Oh, very close, dude. Like, how close is Batley to Leeds? 5 miles? 15 minutes? Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you guys could have been neighbors, you and Robert Palmer. Well, he would have been a lot older.
He would, yeah. He was a bit older, yeah. Anyway, dude, what are we talking about today? Because I am
just
ill-prepared. I am zero prepared. Just before we were jumped on, I was like, oh no, I'm supposed to be talking about what is it? The things that we were wrong about. And I was like, So I was like making a list as fast as I could. We have no idea what each other's lists are.
We don't,
So how should we navigate this?
I mean, I think you should start. I think I've got 5 things. I was brainstorming it with my wife, who Emily, who this morning let me know.
Help. You had help.
Yeah. And she let me know, dude, I've been wrong about plenty.
Oh.
She started to go into, into our marriage and into other things. I'm like, let's just keep this around music, all right?
Let's bring it back.
She's like, we're just keeping it around music. And I'm like, well, oh God. So, I've got a few things. I'm sure you've got a few things. But yeah, I thought it'd be fun of it's a question that I like when people ask other people. I've heard politicians get asked this question, like, what's something that you've changed your mind about?
Oh,
like in the
yeah.
past X
Yeah.
amount of time, what's something you've changed your mind about? And it's kind of a gotcha question for politicians, but for us, I think it's cool. And
Yeah.
there's definitely some things that I've changed my mind about that I feel like, ooh, I was looking at that, not in the right way, or kind of in a narrow view before I've changed my
Yeah.
mind. I don't know. So
Shall I grab my first one? I can
I think
grab
you
it.
should.
I'll grab
think
it
you
because
should.
I was
grab it.
I was wrong. I was so wrong about this one. Hang on.
I can't wait. I see
hang
it.
on.
Oh, just
I'm
struggling
getting
with those
wrapped up in
headphones. You're
wires.
going to find it. You got it. There it is.
Here we go. This is what I was wrong about.
Yeah.
I was wrong about the
that
P
gorgeous
bass.
P bass.
I was wrong about the P bass, dude.
It's like one of the most honest, woody, authentic sounding things in existence.
I cannot tell you how utterly lame and disgusting I used to think P basses sounded. Like,
the same way.
really?
Yeah,
Outrageous.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
because we came up around the same time. P basses weren't
Yeah.
cool in the 90s, you know?
well, they kind of, well, not in, to us they weren't. But can you remember we had having that conversation the other day?
Yeah.
And we were looking at, I know exactly what it was basses. We were talking about, so Ian and I are going to be doing this, we're making a video for the YouTube channel, and it's going to be called something about like the most iconic basses of the 1990s. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and everybody will imagine the stuff that we're going to talk about, right? The Warwick Dolphin.
Oh, yes.
The Streamer. I'm not going to mention them all, right? I'm not going to mention them all because I want it to be a surprise to some extent, right? But so I'm like on the interwebs and I'm looking through lists of who recorded what and all of this. And
yeah.
just to get us right to the punchline, basically 95% of like the most iconic songs of the 1990s were recorded on the P bass. Like 95% it might be more. It was like everything was a P bass.
I know.
But there was this, but they were for us. So the engineers loved them, obviously.
Right.
But me and you, miles apart, other parts of the world, but a lot of our friends as well. These were just like uncool. They were awful, and not only did they look worse than they're just sort of like it was like a bad version of a jazz bass in terms of the way it looked. It just wasn't as cool looking. But you get less pickups, less options. It does like one sound. I was just and
And kind of a nasally sound, it kind of sounds like this.
Yeah,
Right.
like what? Just like dynamically, just not that great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated them. But
Same.
obviously, I completely changed my mind about this. And for me, it was kind of weird. It was the time when P basses started becoming cool again. Obviously, Pino Palladino did that thing with John Mayer, and that really caught my attention. And then there was a bunch of other people started playing. I think Tim LaFave was also started playing a P bass around that time.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I was like, before that, I was all into, shred bass. I was, and hey, just let me put it out there. I'm still into shred bass.
Oh, I know you are.
Oh,
We
know.
know.
Yeah, everybody knows, right? I love a bit of shred bass.
Yeah.
But I was like all into the shred bass. So I was all about 5 strings strung high E to high C instead of a low B. And active zing and like, basically sort of like Formula One versions of basses made for speed. And at some point, we've had this conversation before, at some point I realized, maybe P basses are pretty cool, actually. A lot of great people were playing them. But then also I wanted to everybody was playing E to high C. Everybody was playing them. And I was like,
all those fusion guys.
Exactly. And I was just like, I'm just going to be a crap version of all of these other people. So, and I don't want to do that. I need to differentiate myself somehow. So I actually bought, this might be the first P bass I bought. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's the first P-Bass that I saw you with.
I think it was, yeah. So I bought this P-Bass and it's been great. And yeah, I absolutely love the P-Bass and I love the sound. I love its contribution to music. And I don't think that there's any bass really that is as iconic as the P-Bass. Yeah. It rules.
I mean, I love that bass. I've played that bass a bunch. I have a friend who does this funny bit of like, he's, if you can't admit you were wrong, you're like, okay, I'm going to say it. I was hold on. I got it. No, it's cool. I got it. I was I'm close. I almost got it. But yeah, being able to say it, I was wrong. Oh, hey, something else you were wrong about? Putting a different neck on that bass, dude. You were wrong.
No, I love it.
Hey, you know what we fell prey to, dude? We fell prey to marketing. That's what we fell prey to, right? Like in the 90s, getting Bass Player magazine, you think like, oh, advertisements don't work on me. They do. They do. Yeah. You see those beautiful basses. And even though Ken Smith basses were maybe on, 2% of recordings, maybe 0.2% of recordings, we're like, these basses are taking over the world in the 90s. Yeah. And it just not necessarily true, but optically, from like a marketing perspective, they sure were. They were everywhere. Those boutique basses in the 90s.
Yeah.
I got an opportunity to teach the bass when I was really young. I was too young, right? I was like kind of good at the bass early, but I had no business really being a teacher. But I discovered that I really enjoyed theory really young, even as like a teenager, like about 17, I started to teach at this music store. And Jones Music in Kalispell. If you were one of my students back then, I'm so sorry. Because pretty much I was like, you know what's sick to do on the bass? I mean, it's like the worst, dude. It's the worst.
Dude, have you seen the midwit meme?
No, I don't know it.
The midwit meme is like, maybe we could show a screenshot of it. Is like on one side is somebody that's like, supposed to be very dumb, and on one side there's somebody who's like like a genius, right?
Yes, okay, yes.
Right, and in the middle is the midwit.
The midwit.
The midwit, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is basically sort of like, you want to be one of these, you want to be the genius, or you want to be like this guy. And these two individuals, they actually think very similar in a way. Right? Very simply, and just sort of like, whereas like the people in the middle overcomplicate. So maybe when you were like going, middle, like, isn't this cool? Maybe you were absolutely right. Maybe maybe you're going to come full circle and be like, actually, this is cool.
I feel like when you were describing that meme, I resonate with the mid, though, man.
Oh, me too, like right now.
I'm a midwit for sure.
I am, yeah.
Oh, God.
Overcomplicating everything, yeah.
Yeah, man. So, I was doing that, but then I was like, I figured out all these different ways to play a major scale. And so into my 20s, I would teach a lot, like at this music store and out of my apartment. And there were countless students that I was like, okay, the first thing we did, because I knew that, like in my 20s, I was like, I wasn't doing that anymore. I'm like, no, that's not what you do as a teacher. Now I hard corrected and was like, before you do anything else, you need to learn 7 ways to play a major scale. And I made, so second finger, first finger, like fourth finger, right?
Like, why are so many people quitting? Why is there no bass players around here? Like, there's lots of people starting bass, and we're sending them to this guy. He's a good player.
Yeah. And I was like, listen, that is where we start. And dude, all of my students, almost all of them, just didn't quite get all the way through it. And then I wouldn't move on. I was like, how's your fifth form? How's your open string form? How's that going for you? And they're like, I haven't. I'm like, well, I'll see you next week. I mean, dude, I absolutely had that wrong, where I was really focused on theory immediately. and then just not at all getting to music.
Think about music and fun
No.
and any of that stuff. Yeah.
It was terrible. And I remember, I think back, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I just, in like at bed when you have regret, like, like before you go to sleep, sometimes regret, like the regret sneaks in. Well, it does about all kinds of other things too, but occasionally that one sneaks in and I go, oh God, like I really, like this person isn't playing anymore. This person isn't playing anymore. And I bet it's my fault. So I'm so sorry.
This
and
person
I'd like to
and
think,
this person, and I bought this Buck Iberg bass.
yeah, that's right. Oh, I mean, so that's something I've really changed my ways on. I've really gone the other direction of like, no, you need to sort of like with theory for people that are starting, I believe, and I feel like you're on this page, Scott, where like you need to sneak the spinach in the smoothie, right? It's learn something cool. Hey, your fingers go here. And then like, hey, guess what? Now that you're playing that thing, you're playing this bass line. We don't need to know that that's derived from a pentatonic scale, right? We're just going to play the bass line. And then later you can say, hey, check this out. Sneakily, the spinach is in the smoothie. That is a pentatonic scale. Right?
Dude, it can be challenging teaching people that are just starting out, though. Just to put it out there, like it is, like we were trying to do some stuff earlier. Like Alan and Gav were like, oh, let's do some stuff for Instagram, for beginners. And I was like, okay. You have to think about it. It's so easy to overwhelm people. So so me too. And just to sort of like dovetail into something else, if you haven't checked it out yet, or you haven't seen us talking about on the interwebs, you're going to want to go and straight to startwithsbl.com. We've created this thing called the SBL Beginner's Journey, and it's based on three things, right? First of all, it's all about having fun. So it's all about having fun, learning through having fun, and learning songs, not sort of like overly theorized, really focusing on playing. And it's for three types of players. First of all, if you're just starting out, like zero, total noob, it's for you. Secondly, if you've already got over that hump, you're already playing a few songs and you're looking to level up, it's going to be perfect for you as well. And then the third, it's sort of like organized into three stages. And then the third stage is for people that have been in that beginner like spot for a little too long and you really wanting to level up to that intermediate, it's for you too as well. So there's like three stages. The team have been putting it together. Ian's recorded a bunch of courses, incredible learning pathways. It's like full on, like I would say the best beginner method online that's available for bass players right now. So if you want to check it out, all you need to do is go to startwithsbl.com and check it out. You can get $50 off as well when you go to that page. But I think it's only for depending on when you're, obviously that offer's it's not forever. So if you want to go check it out, like ideally now, and grab that $50 off, because I think that it's only on for about a week, depending on when we publish this podcast, so about a week. But yeah, go check it out. It's super, super cool. And you will learn through Ian.
And I promise that the first thing I do is I promise I will not make you learn 7 ways to play the major scale.
You have cleansed yourself.
Yeah. The first thing we do, just real quick, this is so fun. One of the first things we do is just play a big open E over a drum groove. Because like, that's, And if you can do that, you're a bass player. And so that's where we start. We have fun. We laughed a lot. We had a blast. And we really do get to all of the building blocks. It's not just like, whatever, play an open E and now you're a bass player. We really do assess all the building blocks, but via songs, via actually playing something along to a track that's cool. There's tons of play alongs. It's a good time. I loved making it. So please check it out.
It is a good time. Yeah. Like another one on my list is that boutique basses aren't all that.
Wait, whoa. Say it again. What was it?
Boutique basses aren't all that. They're like, Like, 'cause I was Mr. Boutique Bass. I was like full on Mr. Boutique Bass. I was all about them. And to a certain extent, you know, I still am. Like, my main bass is, it's down here somewhere. It's there, right? It's like this new, F basses, right? I've played F basses for years now. Well, 2 or 3 years anyway. And I absolutely love them. They are, I guess, sort of like classed as a boutique bass, although this one really is a... just to sort of like pull it up as well so I can show everybody that's watching. By the way, if you guys aren't watching, please consider go checking this out on YouTube. It's on YouTube, so you'll be able to see what we're doing. And while you're doing it, man, consider subscribing. We're trying to hit an obscene number of subscribers, like 1.5 million by the end of the year. And we need your help, gang. We need your help.
We need your help.
We need your help. So come along and do it. But yeah, so this is my my current bass. Again, like same as all of the other BNs that I've played, the F basses. And but it's like I guess it's classed as a boutique bass. But it's kind of like just a jazz bass in a super fancy nice shell suit. Feels great, but it's got this and it sounds. Hit me.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, like it sounds great. But yeah, but when I was like obsessing about boutique basses, I was all about the fancy top. The fancier top, dude, the better.
Oh, yeah.
Give me some Buckeye Burl.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's just completely filled with rosin and completely killing any resonance in the... It's fine. It's fine. I just need it to look...
Exactly.
Man, I was way into that too. Yeah, I loved that stuff.
So I was wrong about boutique basses, and now I'm really on board in terms of, you can make a $200 bass sound like a $20,000 bass if you play it right.
Yes.
And the opposite, you can make a $20,000 bass sound like garbage. If you can't play the thing. So I'm definitely, I was wrong about a lot of things. But yeah, so over to you anyway, take it.
Oh man, well I'm going to dovetail off of that and say the boutique or categorizing and poo-pooing certain basses over time. I think it's something that we all do. You find identity in a certain thing. So for me early on, it was like, okay, the boutique bass, like I don't want to play a Fender because that's like my dad's thing. And I don't, it's like an older generation thing. It's a boomer thing. I don't want that, and so you find these boutiques.
And what do you know it? Now we're both dads. We love them.
It just comes around, man. It comes around. But I had that experience where I went into a studio with a really fancy bass and got my ass kicked by a producer who was like, here, try this, Mexican made. It was like a $550 jazz bass and it was better. And like, we've probably all had some kind of version of that where you pay all the money and you think this is going to be the best, air quotes, the best bass. And it just depends on what you're doing. Might be great for a certain genre, not for everything. I had that experience. And so then I went hard vintage, right? Fender, Rickenbacker, like fully passive. And the thing that I was wrong about just thinking that there was something that was superior. Like, passive Fenders, that's it. Like that's it. And so you were saying you've been wrong about boutique. I kind of have come back to it a bit. Like I've come back to my love for Spectres, my love for EMG. Like there was a while where I was like, EMGs are lame, that active bass sound, yuck. And it's been creeping back in because to me, sounds are like, they're timestamps. So when I hear the active bass sound, like a Warwick, for instance, you mentioned, it sounds like the 90s. Or I hear that like growly Spectre thing with a pick. I think it's like late 80s into the 90s. And I love that. It's not going to necessarily be great for everything. But also, I was talking to Emily this morning and she was like, you have to tell him this. When I met Emily, I was still like really into boutique-y stuff, and I'd show her pictures of basses, as we bass players may do to somebody new that we're courting, and we just have no idea.
Dude,
that, like,
I dumped somebody that I thought could be a pretty serious relationship. I swear to God. I dumped her because I showed her a bass and she basically just didn't give two craps. And in my mind, in that moment, I was like, oh, this is dead. Relationship dead. In that moment, I can even remember the bass. It was a red overwater bass. Dude, had a spalted maple top.
Oh, she didn't like the spalted maple, dude?
She didn't even care about the spalted maple. I was like, oh, you're out. And Lisa will do it now. I'll be like showing a bass and she's like, she like looks, she doesn't give two shits, right? She looks, and in my mind, and I've even said this out loud, I'm like, oh, you are so lucky that we're just not starting seeing each other right now, because you would be dead to me if you just like,
out the car door, just okay. I'll never see you again.
Yeah, literally, our kids just sort of like disintegrate.
Just the family drops through the trapdoor.
Yeah, never happened. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but yeah. So were you into all the boutique bass when you met Emily?
Yeah, and I'd be like, ooh, look at this, and I'd show her some, spalted maple thing, and she was like, those like the ones that are just like all natural with there's no color and there's no pick guard. She's like, those are penis basses. And I was like, what? And she's like, it's a penis bass. Yeah. And I could not, for the life of me, get it out of my head. I mean, it still haunts me whenever there's a bass that has no pick guard, no color. Or like I'll show it to her and she'll be like, a little penisy though, don't you think? Like it's all natural there, And hey, but she was like, something you've been wrong about? She's like, there's too many damn penis basses in the house now. She's like, you've been buying those ones that are natural, those wood ones that are real expensive. She's like, what are you doing? Like,
would this be a penis bass?
No, because I feel like if it were fully natural, maybe, but the red kind of takes you out of that zone. At least, hey, I'm not saying for me, I'm saying for my wife. She sees those basses and she's like, oh, come on. She's like, what are we doing here?
I like a natural wood bass. But I will say that I've never, like talking when you were saying, you're going back to like, actually active, the EMGs might be cool. You're going back there. I have never gone back to the boutique sort of like fancy Buckeye tops. I'm not really into it. I've never gone back there. But I will say that in terms of active basses, I've gone full circle. I went from active and then I went like, oh, it's only passive and everything is rubbish. And now I'm like, oh, I want a little bit more flexibility, especially sort of like recording or on gigs or something like that. I'll be, it's cool to be, like give it a
little bump of bass.
Or maybe a bit of bump mid or, or like cut the mid.
Yeah,
like doing that.
Yeah, it sounds good.
It's nice to be able to do that. So especially, and for me, it's like having a nice transparent EQ as well is kind of key. Like having the transparent. If it's not, the active EQ needs to be transparent. If it's like overly, the kind of basses where you sort of like you're boosting the bass, it's just like, and the treble is like,
insane.
So I do like the actives on this. What's next, dude? Do you want me to go next?
Yeah, what do you got?
I've got one.
I can't wait. Slap bass.
Yes. I'm just, for anybody listening to this, I'm staring directly at Ian. I'm just going.
Dude, it's intense. just like unbreakable eye contact. Unbreakable eye contact.
Not blinking. Slap bass, dude. I thought slap bass was uncool for so long. I feel so guilty about it. And I think it was born at a couple of different things. And interestingly, the first time I picked up a bass, forever, like the first time my old boss gave me a bass when I was like 17 or 18, shout out to Chris May, gave me this sort of like 4-string status bass, and
cool.
And I took it home. All I did on that thing was slap the living heck out of it. Like I killed it. Like I couldn't even play. I couldn't play. None of that. It was just sort of like
just typewriter.
I think it was like I think it was this.
Machine gun triplets.
That's the first thing that I was trying to play on bass.
Oh, dude, that's sick. Come on. Yeah.
Anyway, so so it's not like I didn't start with slap, but for whatever reason, I think that earlier on, like, oh yeah, that's it. I know. I'm just thinking it through now. So you can tell I've prepped, can't you? As I was sort of like getting into bass, really early on, I started listening to some really fantastic soloists, more in the sort of like jazz fusion world. And that just really resonated with me. And it kind of like overtook the slap thing. Not that the slap thing was ever really a thing. I never really got into it, but I went hardcore into this sort of like improvisational solo world, the Matt Garrison, Scoolis Ferrison, like that John Patitucci, that thing. And they weren't slapping. So the people that I was, Anthony Jackson as well, the people I was really influenced by, weren't slapping. So like any stupid freaking teenager, I was like, oh, well, the thing that I'm not into must be uncool and I don't like that. You know, I just wasn't really into it. And I don't really think I ever, like, I wasn't ever snooty about it or look down my nose or anything like that. I wasn't like hardcore, but I can remember just thinking, I'll tell you what I did. I can remember people doing like, I'll be at a show, right? I'll be at a gig.
Yeah.
Some dude comes along, plays a slap bass solo, crowd goes wild, right? and I'm just like, I'm just like, party tricks. Like, that's
right.
the
Like,
sort of like, you know, I was like, come on.
Yeah.
You know, he's just sort of like doing the same old thing that he does. He's playing the same old thing he does at every show. And like,
sure.
So there was definitely that going on to a certain extent. And then I didn't really practice it. So all of that. Anyway, come full circle. You're over here. Or I'm preparing to do the slap accelerator with you. Yeah. And you know what? I freaking fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so hard. I got so into it. Even before that, actually, I think that it was watching you online. You slap in a different way to a lot of other players. And it seems like, let me see if I can sum it up on like a bumper sticker. In service of funk. Like that's, you know, if somebody was like, how does Ian slap? In service of funk and vibe. That's what seems to be the essence of it. It's not,
oh, wow.
It's not, it's not that, right? It's actually all about the groove, all about the vibe. And I was like, oh, that I can hang my hat on. I can be like, this thing I really love. And then we got talking to, we'll do the slap accelerator, and then started practicing. I was like, listening to a lot of other slap players. I was like, oh, I've been missing out on so much. I'd been missing out on so much incredible music. I've been sleeping on so many incredible bass players. Like up until that point, I hadn't really gone like hardcore Marcus Miller, honestly.
Really?
And it was that. Like, I'd heard a lot of Marcus Miller, but not really like, do you know when you go down the rabbit hole?
I do know.
And when you're down the rabbit hole, you have that, oh shit, this guy's a freaking genius. You have that moment, right?
Yes.
I had that moment off the back of falling in love with slap bass, you know, discovering it again, trying to get good at it, you know, so I could teach it. And then I found all of these incredible players. So I was completely wrong about slap. It was
slap
a great experience as well. And now when I do it, I'm like, oh, the sound. I just love it. It's so good.
Dude, you sound great. You sound great playing it too. And I remember you worked your ass off. I remember how hard you worked.
Yeah,
you really did.
A lot,
You're like, oh, because I was doing that. I was doing like a Victor thing. I think I was playing like what, like, right? And you were like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what was it? Yeah, that's it. It's in E, isn't it? So, okay, so, oh no, it's because you're doing. I can't even play it like you. So, no. That thing there. God damn, I can't do that thing. For anybody not watching. He's doing it's well when you play, it's all double thumb, isn't it? The whole thing.
The whole thing is double thumb. Yeah. And for me, dude, I started out slapping with the slap bass program VHS, shout out Alexis Sklarevsky, and I was doing all that stuff. All the machine gunny stuff.
Yeah.
But I was working, so this is on my list too. I was wrong about double thumb because Alexis Sklarevsky, the guy that I like got this, VHS, he would do this thing where he would slap with his thumb and then his second finger. So he would do that.
What?
Where he would yes. Yes. That's right. That's it.
That feels very uncomfortable to do that.
It's very strange, right?
It's like a Doug Wimbish type of thing, right?
Maybe
he does
so.
something like that, right? Yeah.
Doug sounds super funky. Alexis was really good at it. I sounded so. I mean, like I was like, hey, fellas, this is funky, right? Then I was like. I mean, it was the cheesiest. And I'll never forget being in a store, Mars Music, and my boss, this guy named Chuck, man. Chuck was doing all that. Double thumb stuff. And I was like, hey, Chuck, I can do that too. And I was like. And he was like, oh, yeah, cool, man. And I was like, damn it. Like, Chuck would just grab a bass and go.
Oh, God, he sounds so good.
One note,
It's,
Yeah.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How it makes the bass feel completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah, love it. I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah, but you got it together. I mean, you were working on it so hard around the slap bass program or around the accelerator.
Well, I just didn't slap like that at all. I was like, all
down thumb, flea.
Down thumb like flea, from back in the day when I initially learned it. So I had to completely revamp my technique, which was so much fun, honest.
Well, and I remember because in my 20s I did the same thing, like because of that guy at the music store. I saw somebody do it. Yeah. I heard it. It was so much funkier and cooler than what I was doing, and I'm like, damn it, I need to do it, and it hurt. And it sucked and it felt stupid and I thought I'll never get it. And it took me honestly about a year to where like now, like if I'm playing just a groove. Like it feels natural now, it feels like I can improvise a little bit with it and I can, use it as a tool. I don't get asked to do it a ton. It's not like, oh man, Ian, can you do that double thumb thing? But there have been on a few sessions actually recently where people are like, hey, can you do like two versions of this line? Will you do a picked version and a slapped version? And it's so nice to be able to say yes to that. Yeah. Instead of like, I don't know if I'm the right guy or like, I don't know. I just like having it in the bag and it feels like drums. It feels, you don't have to always be pyrotechnic, like all the, on the bass. You can just, something simple and soft.
I think it. So check it out. And before I say this, just to put it out to the universe, all of the incredible slap bass players that do all of that pyrotechnic stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm not taken away from that at all. So just want to put that out into the universe because hey, we all love different things, and I think that there's absolutely room in the universe for people tearing it up, playing that stuff,
of course,
and doing all of the pyrotechnic stuff, the Victor Wootons, the Alain Carons, the Brian Brombergs, like that
Henrik.
thing. But for me, Henrik
Linder, too.
Yeah, Henrik Linder, yeah. But for me, like me personally, it distracted from the other like slap, like the thing that we're talking about here, where it's just like this incredible groove but played with a thumb.
Yes.
it became about the zzz, it became about that.
Yes,
and
right.
not, and that's kind of like what, not put me off, but I guess sort of like made me sort of like step away when I was young and be like, I don't really want to do that. It felt like maybe a bit gimmicky. I'm just going to say it, right? It felt a bit gimmicky.
Sure.
And whereas like when I listen to what you're talking about and what you're demonstrating here, that really did it for me. And just to say, I need to say his name out, like Brown Mark as well. I am such a fan of listening to him. Like, cause it's all about that. Like Brown Mark is one of Prince's old bass players. And I could just listen to him play all day. He's
100%.
just incredible. And it's all about this. He's got this thing that he does that's like kind of signature to him. And it's not, it's like slap bass is viewed as one thing and it's actually not. I think there's kind of like two separate or maybe even three separate schools of approaches to that. I would say one would be the sort of like almost like a punk approach, like Flea, and that essence, that vibe, right? It's to do with like, it's really powerful, it's super aggressive. There's a hell of a lot of octaves involved, like that thing. Then there's the other more sort of like pyrotechnical. I would say, it's not pyrotechnical, actually. It's just a different approach. I would put like Marcus Miller actually is in this category for me. But like Marcus Miller is actually a lot of like, it's very groove based, but he has got sort of like, he's got some very clever stuff that he does. And then stacked on top of that in terms of pyrotechnics would be Alain Caron, then Victor Wooten, then Brian Bromberg, which are more sort of like, it's more like an extension somewhat of the Marcus Miller thing. Yes. And again, hey, this is just the way that I see it. I'm not saying that this is the way, just the way that I categorize it in my own mind. And then you've got a different approach, which would be Brown Mark. That would be, I would put your sort of like technique in that kind of school and approach. And then also Prince, like Prince,
for sure.
And also like Larry Graham maybe as well.
Yes.
Like that, where it's just, there's nuances, right? But it's important because it feels different when you listen to them people play.
Yeah. Well, and Larry was huge for me, but that whole thing of like, getting one note to bounce like that is so, and I heard him do that and I was like, oh, that's cool. Even though I loved Bromberg and like all the pyrotechnic players, I was stunned by all that stuff, but I couldn't do it very well. But I found like, oh, I can make that G sit down in a pocket and feel nice. God, not like Larry. I mean, Larry is amazing. Larry's amazing.
Yeah.
But it was really inspirational to me. Yeah. That vibe. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Anyway, where are we? What are we even here? What we're talking about? Oh, things we were wrong about.
Wrong, dude. We were wrong. There's a few more. Do you want to
take one?
You want to do a couple more?
I've got one.
Hit me.
Tight string spacing. I was obsessed with, at one point in my life, I was like obsessed with tight string spacing. Kind of like, and there's two things. There's two paths that this smaller is better kind of approach took me in life.
Yeah.
One was string spacing, and it was, and both of these paths are kind of like the old Nokias. Remember when Nokia was just shrinking down, and then it got
Nokia. Nokia.
Nokia. And it got to the point where at some point they released it into the market and they were like, oh, these are unusable. Nobody's got fingers small enough to press these phones anymore.
Yeah, sure.
My experience in both of these paths were kind of like this. One was with string spacing. It went from, and where did this start, man? So this, for instance, this bass right here, 19 millimeter string spacing. I think a P bass is 20. That bass you've got probably 20. This is 19. Some basses on the boutique side might be 18 mil, not all, some, but they're like the three standards: 20 mil for 4 strings, 5 strings, most of the time 19 millimeter, sometime 18 millimeter. But there were players out there. The first one that came into my orbit was Gary Willis, obviously huge inspiration for me. And his string spacing was, I think, 16.5. I think it was 16.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
on his signature bass?
On the signature Ibanez, yeah. So I was like all into that. I was like, it's got to be small string spacing, just like Gary, because obviously, I want to play like Gary.
Lil Willis, dude.
Lil Willis. Yeah. So it was all about the sort of like the tight string spacing. So I went to 16 millimeters. But just, can you remember that Ben Stiller clip in like There's Something About Mary?
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the car. He's picked up the hitchhiker, right? And he's like, so what are you doing? The hitchhiker's like, I'm releasing a fitness program. And he's like, I'm gonna butcher the story, but it's something like, what's it going to cut? And the guy's like, well, have you heard 3-minute abs? And Ben Stiller's like, 3-minute abs, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to do 2-minute abs. And like, there's this awkward silence. Well, this was kind of my approach to the string space. I'm like, Gary Willis, 16.5. Okay. Okay, I'm going 16.
16 straight. Yeah.
16 millimeters. So at some point I went to 16 millimeters. That was a whole thing. Hey, was I wrong about it? I think I obsessed about it too much. Yeah, it's like one of those things where you think the secret is that, but the secret is just like more hours spent on the thing, right? Just practice more. No, the secret has to be that if I lose 0.5 of a millimeter, that's the move. That's what. Hey. You might just want to spend more hours playing. So I think I obsessed overly about the string spacing thing. I will say that, hey, when the string spacing is a bit tighter, it does. You can play faster. You can play a bit faster. You can.
Yeah, but then
I have witnessed it. I've walked the path.
But then it's like you see, so you think that, and you're right. Like especially a bead. Like if you're like, okay, here's 20 millimeter string spacing, here's 16. Ooh, I find that I can play a little faster. But you know what's crazy? When you see orchestral upright players playing arco, playing so fast.
Yeah.
Like up high and making it sound like a freaking viola, and then down at these insane runs. And then you're like, oh, that's a 44-inch scale with this insane radius. And it's kind of just like what you get used to. Yeah. So if where you're at, if you directly compare, you might be able to play a little faster. But then all that stuff, I feel like, just gets blown out the window when you see people that have like really devoted themselves to some crazy difficult instrument like the upright bass.
Exactly that. And then also for me, like it's hard to do that when the string spacing's tight. For me.
Oh, sure.
Like Gerald Veasley, I think, does it. He's got like incredibly tight string spacing. But for me, I like it like a little wider. So I played an 18 mil string spacing recently, and I was like, maybe a bit too tight. And I can't even believe that went through my mind. I was like, maybe a bit too tight. I'm going to go back to 19. I was talking to Marcel at F-Bass. They're building me a bass. And I was like, he was like, do you want 18? I was like, actually, let's just do 19. So I actually,
like, who are you anymore? Who are you, Scott Devine?
I know. Yeah. I just don't even know who I am anymore. I'll tell you just another thing that I wasn't, just a sort of like a side note before I got, I said there was two things where I got obsessed with the size of things decreasing. One was string spacing. But side note before I tell you the second one is that I actually, when I was ordering basses because of my old boutique thing, like the boutique bass thing that I was addicted to, I'd always get them with 24 frets. 24 frets.
Yep.
And for me, I prefer, is it 22? Whatever this is, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, 22. I prefer 22. Because it sounds different when you slap on a 24-inch.
Sure does.
A 24 fret bass, it just doesn't have the same amount of bottom end. So,
because you're hitting the harmonic on the low E.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It just doesn't sound the same, does it? Yeah. So definitely changed my mind about the 24 fret thing. I was all about, hey, 24 fret, give me 28 frets, dude.
Keep it going, man. 29, 30.
Exactly, right? So I've definitely changed. So I do like 32 frets, or maybe even 22, sorry, maybe even 21. This is 22, but it'd be nice to try 21. But the other thing that I was obsessed about size with is, and this is really detrimental. This is like nobody would have minded about the string spacing. Nobody would have cared. Nobody cared. I didn't talk about it to like the people in the band or anything like that. Yeah. This the next thing people did care about.
Ooh,
I was obsessed with just getting my amps just getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Interesting.
And to your earlier point, right? You think you're immune to marketing. We are not. All the magazines and all of the amps, everything's getting lighter and smaller and lighter and smaller and lighter and smaller. And at some point, you end up in that same situation with the Nokia, the tiny, like you end up in that situation. And when I realized it, I just sort of like shrank my amp down to, I was so pleased. I bragged about it. Look at, I just whip this. I've got these two little cabs. They're like Matchbox. I pop them in the back of my car.
Yeah,
and look,
right.
and my head, look the little head.
Yeah, look at how cute it is.
Like it wasn't one of them Gallion-Kruger things, but close. Anyway, so.
Yes.
And everybody in Leeds they're all using like the little Gallion-Kruger, the tiny, not the RB, not the big things, guys, the tiny little ones.
Yeah, the little ones, yeah.
Yeah, the little ones, right? And then I'm on a gig and I plug into an SVT, right?
Oh, yeah.
I plug into it. It's like this hired rig and I like plug into it and like all my sort of like, all my choices just flashed before me. I was like, oh, I went down the wrong path. I went down the wrong path. And it had just been slowly getting smaller, slowly. And like everybody probably on the gigs was like, is it me or is Scott's sound just getting worse and worse and just getting like weaker and tinier and tinier?
And
bit mid, a bit mid, So yeah, I was wrong about the amps. Yeah. And now,
wow, yeah.
Look, I don't turn up to the gigs with the SVT, right? And all of that. But hey, if I had a minion, if I had a couple of yellow little minions to carry an SVT, I would be turning up to that gig with an SVT and a big 4x10. 4x10, just moving air. I was so wrong about the amp thing.
Oh man. Well, for me, it's just vanity. Like I hated the small rigs. I still do because I just think they look silly. Like, so that one did not get me marketing wise. I was always like, like these are so silly. Like, I like the look of like a big rig behind me. Like, I want that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, man, playing 12s or like playing like a single 12 on a gig next to a drummer that's even playing medium volume. I don't care what the cabinet is. I don't care how expensive, how much the company thinks it sounds like a bigger cabinet. It doesn't. It doesn't. In my experience. Like that Bareface you have behind you, that 212, that's a beast.
That's a freaking beast. That's what a 212 should look like.
Yeah,
none of this sort of like squeezing into a tiny cap. They're like, oh, we got a 212, but we're going to make it bigger.
I know.
How do we make it better? Bigger.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just it's acoustics, it's physics, right? It's like a bigger box resonates, right, and produces more air. Oh my god,
I can just imagine. I can just imagine people going crazy in the comments right now. Let me just put it out there. Look, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. I was the guy. I know I said something about short scales, and the entire world.
You called everybody a loser.
But I was being sarcastic.
I know.
I even sent somebody a video. This guy was like, oh, he sent me an email. He was so pissed off at me.
Really?
Yeah, he was so pissed off at me. And I sent him a video and I was like, look, man, I was like, I was being sarcastic. I actually love short. And I was like, brought my phone on the video and I was like, look, this is reverb.com and this bass is a short scale. And I was thinking about buying it last night. I was like, I was being sarcastic. And he messaged me back and he was like, I did not know. So to all of them people that got mad about the short scale thing, I was joking. It was I know, my bad humor. I'm so sorry. Anyway, but just moving on to the small caps. If you want to play a small cap, you are not a loser. Let me just put it out there, right? You play them small caps.
Maybe
you
just
play
a
them.
A loser. A joke. We kid. It's all good. You got to laugh to keep from crying.
And hey, and some people have got. And just to put it out there, I actually on a gig I've got 2 1x12 cabs, and they're pretty small. Put them in the car. Got my head. That's pretty small as well. So look, I'm using small cabs. I'm just saying that I was wrong, and I'm still wrong about them. If I could squeeze an SVT and I had a couple of minions, I'd be squeezing the SVT, or that big 4x10 and a head. I'd be squeezing in the car because they sound better.
Yeah, it just like, especially in a big space or outside, too. Like big cabs just sound so good. Yeah.
Dude, 6x10, 8x10. I can remember doing this gig. I think it was either 6 and 8x10, and it had this like SVT Heritage all valve.
That's
heavier than the
head.
Sun head.
Yep.
It was the greatest sound. It was a bed of sound. It was right behind me.
Yes.
I swear I could just like lean back and the air could just hold me up. It was like, and the coolest thing, and anybody that's experienced this right now, experienced it before, will smile as I say this. When you've got that big rig, right? It's big. It's moving a lot of air. It's right behind you. All of those ghost notes.
Oh, yeah.
When you do that and you can just hear them like a percussion player in your back, it's the best.
It's the best
ever.
Like, yeah, like it's someone like tapping you, like tum, 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 tum.
Oh, it's the greatest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's
a really good feeling.
Yeah. That's when I had that moment when I was playing them ghost notes on that gig. I was like, it's almost like it was like an out of body experience. It was amazing. Anyway, dude, I'm hogging.
No, you're fine. I just to add on to that, I got to tour. I have a white SVT that a friend of mine recovered in white Tolex and then made me an 810 cab. I got to take that out with Eric Hutchinson. We were out in 2015. We opened up for Kelly Clarkson and we did, I'm just name dropping, and we did like
Kelly.
10 weeks. Yeah. Ooh, Kelly. But it was like big arenas and sheds, like Staples Center in LA, and Radio City Music Hall, and big outdoor venues. And I looked forward to getting on that big ass stage with that big rig every night. We weren't on in-ears. It was wedges and a big 810 behind me. It was the best. Yeah. It was so fun to do that. I mean, yeah. So I love a big rig. I also just like the way they look. I'm way in. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
You want to do one more? Something you were wrong about?
Yeah, I've got one. A funny one. Just it's like a throwaway one, but I'll just throw it in there just as a bit of a joke, or to be a bit cheeky. Monitor engineers don't know everything.
That's true. They don't.
Oh, it's true. Do you know, just as you were speaking there, I was like, oh, yeah. And then I was like thinking, oh, I can remember when I was just like starting out, didn't really know much. And I had this like monitor engineer like telling me like, no, this is the sound you want. I'm like, I'm sure it's not. But I think he knows better than I do. So maybe it is the sound I want. Yeah, it definitely wasn't the sound I wanted.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, you know, monitor engineers are just like people, and not all people
I love
are
you,
right.
Monitor engineers. I love you. It's just, it made me think of this. Yeah. This experience.
And a great monitor engineer. Like I had an experience recently we did a fly date out to this strawberry festival in Alabama with Eric Hutchinson.
You told me about this. Yeah.
Dude, there was a monitor guy, and he was, I can't remember his name, but he was so good. And he was like, I have a mix just pulled up in your wedge, just what I think you might want, but you just let me know. And I was like, oh, it was kind of throw and go. And we started to play, and it was perfect. Like he knew that I would want just a touch of kick. He knew that I would want a lot of my vocal, but a tiny bit of the other vocals. He knew I'd want just a little bit of keys. He wondered if I wanted a little bit of bass. He had a little bit of bass in it. And then I was
he
like,
was just a freaking badass.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't need the bass. Woof, it was gone. Fat, you know, and that kind of monitor engineer that really knows, you know, that's thinking musically and has done it a bunch. And I afterwards, I was like, I bet you're on the road with somebody. And he's like, oh yeah. I've been out with, and he just started to name all these artists. I'm like, he's a pro, you know, typically the monitor engineers that say, this is what you want or anybody, dude. I'm going to open it up to anybody that says, hey, this is what you want, and these are the things you can and cannot do and should not like. That stuff is coming from inexperience and insecurity. If someone is like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you shouldn't like that sound. You should like this sound. Yeah. That's just someone trying to prop up what the thing they learned at the school that they went to, or the thing that the old crusty other sound person told them,
exactly
like it's
that.
Not true.
Yeah.
It's just, so get your bullshit meter out, your bullshit detector, get it out and run it. When someone is saying, I got one, this is one where I went to, my bullshit meter was out. I went to buy a spring reverb pedal at a music store because I was playing in a gig, almost doing some like, some like baritone stuff. And you know me, Scott. I mean, this is the sound, that sound I love. And I ended up using that a lot in this band that I would sub in called the Brighton Anyway. Before I had the HX Stomp, I was like, I need to get a spring reverb pedal. And I remember going into a store and having a guy say, oh, what guitar do you want to try it out with? And I said, oh, I actually tried out with a bass. And he was like, oh, he goes, let me guess. You don't play in any bands, do you? And it's funny because I was going to get the pedal and go to play with a band that day, I was like, and instead of getting upset at him I was sort of shocked. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, listen, let me tell you something. Bass players don't play with reverb. You shouldn't. Just let me do you a favor right now. You should never, ever play with reverb. And it was that weird thing, and I think I was like, okay, cool, man. I still want to try it, and then later we reconciled, but it was really interesting. Like if you ever, I think that I've had some of those things, especially young coming up. You kind of define yourself on the music you like and the music you hate, and the style of bass players and basses that you like and that you don't like. And you say stuff like, well, I like everything except country music, or I would never play that brand of bass. Because you're trying to carve an identity. Yeah. And I think it's fine for a period, but just get that bullshit detector out. Is that bullshit? Is that because this sound, I have now used this sound so much on different projects and albums and live, and people love it. There have been sessions I've gotten hired to play that sound specifically, right? So if I would have listened to that guy, the gatekeepers, I guess reverb, I guess I shouldn't be doing that thing that I think maybe it's cool. Maybe I don't know what's cool. Just like you with the monitor engineer. Yeah. Oh, he knows better than I do. Sniff it out, guys. If it doesn't feel, if it feels like it's coming from a gatekeeping place or a place of like just rules versus musicality, throw it away. Throw it away.
Dude, did we do the pod?
Yeah, man, we did the pod. Good job, Scott Devine.
Yeah, good job to you as well, mate. Good job to you. Peoples, let us know what you think in the comments, specifically about, this was kind of more like the old school pods that we used to do, where we're just kind of sort of like riffing and having a good time. So, and we've been talking about it for a while. What tends to happen, especially on YouTube, is because of the YouTube world that we live in, it's kind of like, we're like, we need to make it and package it in a certain way. It needs to be a certain length, because if it's not going to get the view numbers, and YouTube aren't going to share it out. So we need to do lots of screen shares. So all of that, and play the whole YouTube game that it's not our game. It's the game that, you've got to play when you're doing YouTube as a business like this. So, but we've been missing just riffing and having a good time. Not that we're not having a good time in the other videos, but we've been missing the kind of like the flowy conversation of the older pods. And we just wanted to give it a try on the main channel, see how it flies. And if you dig it, we'll do more. If you don't dig it, we'll do less. So if you could let us know in the comments, that'd be beautiful.
We still might do more. I might get you into doing some of these convos. Even if.
Oh, actually, dude. Yeah, he's right, actually. We might actually just do it anyway.
Tap bass frenzy to take us out. Ready? Join me.
What are you doing?
Don't leave me hanging, Divine.
I'm on it. I was like this.
Trying to find it.
Yeah. Cool. That's a pod.
That's
Done.
great.